Please join me in Gasho. Namo Amidabs, Namo Amidabs, Namo Amidabs, Namandabs, 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 Namandabs. Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me okay? Yes, okay. Thank you for joining us for our February 28th regular Dharma service. Before I forget, I just, as we were signing on, I got two notices. One is a reminder to people, if you are interested or if you have children or grandchildren who may want to join a gathering, our Stusen Temple, we have started once a month on the second Saturday of the month. So in March, it will be the 13th. Starting at 10 a.m., we have a Zoom Dharma School or Kids Sangha gathering. Also, the national organization is holding a gathering for kids on the fourth Saturday of the month. And again, that'll be 10 o'clock local time. So if anybody is interested in having either grandkids or kids join, please contact myself to get more information on that. So that was the first thing. The other is a little bit more sad and shocking news. I just heard through my cousin in New York, Jennifer. She mentioned that the Higashi Honganji Temple in Los Angeles got vandalized just yesterday. Apparently, somebody threw rocks through the window and burned some artifacts outside the temple building. The police are not sure yet whether this was a hate-related crime or not, but if anybody is interested in supporting them or sending them your support, please Google it up. It's the Higashi Honganji in Los Angeles, and I'm sure you'll be able to find information about that. Again, if you are unable to find it, please feel free to contact me, and I could let you know where you could find it.
Sorry to interrupt. I can put their link in the chat for everybody.
Thank you. So Jennifer will put the link in the chat for everybody. So if anybody wishes to, I don't know, send a message or whatever it may be, you could do so. Okay. In this trying times that we're in, I think it's very important for us to share our support for one another. So I'd like to begin this morning service with a moment of silent meditation, followed by the recitation of the name of the Buddha or the Nembutsu. No more nubs, no more nubs, no more nubs, no more nubs, no more. Next, we'll be having the reading of the golden chain first. Let me bring that up. It is on the screen if you haven't printed it out yourselves. So we will read together the golden chain of love. Golden chain of love. I am a link in Amida Buddha's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. In gratitude, may I keep my link bright and strong. I will try to be kind and gentle to every living being and to protect all who are weaker than myself. I will try to think pure and beautiful thoughts, to say pure and beautiful words, and to do pure and beautiful deeds, knowing that what I do affects not only my happiness or unhappiness, but also those of others. May every link in Amida Buddha's golden chain of love be bright and strong, and may we all attain perfect peace. Namo. Next, we will have the chanting of the Junyirai, 12 adorations, and it's on your screen if you don't have it printed out. And following that, we will also read the English translation. Naman nobs, naman nobs, naman nobs, naman nobs. Naman nobs, naman nobs.
고가 조라입니다.
よ現実証言前後上上名内座おいざ上女戦の子が将来みなそ自も将来勝負し権限人図し安楽戦後尊厳上具行子が将来みだそ小無常無我と薬女水月伝よろ一種世も無名字子が将来みだそ一尊無説無悪名薬無如に悪道主に死心教依存子が将来みだそ依存無量勉強無所主悪知識往生不体死亡大子が将来みだそがせず依存具独自修善無変如外水小逆前後小上者世主上小異語We'll now read the English translation. The 12 Adorations, Junirai translation. Before Amida Buddha, whom heavenly beings worship, I humble myself in deepest reverence. In his wondrous land of bliss, surrounded is he by countless bodhisattvas. His golden form shines forth pure like the king of Mount Sumeru. His practice of truth is steadfast like an elephant's pace. His eyes radiate like pure blue lotus blossoms. Thus I prostrate myself before Amida Buddha. His countenance is perfectly pure and round like the full moon. His majestic light shines like 1,000 suns and moons. His voice is like a heavenly drum, yet like a heavenly bird, kokila. Thus I prostrate myself before Amida Buddha. Avalokitesvara wears upon his crown the image of Amida adorned with many precious jewels. He subdues the arrogance of demons and heretics. Thus I prostrate myself before Amida Buddha. Incomparable, vast, and pure his virtues are, clearly extending like vast open space. His acts freely benefiting all. Thus I prostrate myself before Amida Buddha. Bodhisattvas from the 10 quarters and countless maras, demons, always venerate him. He dwells with vow power for the sake of all beings. Thus I prostrate myself before Amida Buddha. In the golden treasure pond where the lotus flowers bloom, established with goodness is a wondrous throne, where reigns the Buddha like the king of the mounts. Thus I prostrate myself before Amida Buddha. From the 10 quarters, bodhisattvas come, revealing wondrous powers, they attain blissful state. Honoring his face, they offer eternal homage. Thus I prostrate myself before Amida Buddha. All things are transient and without self, like the moon on water, lightning, shadow, or the dew. The Dharma cannot be expressed by words, the Buddha proclaimed. Thus I prostrate myself before Amida Buddha. No words of evil are in his land, no fear of evildoers, nor evil paths. With sincere heart, all beings worship him. Thus I prostrate myself before Amida Buddha. His land of infinite expediencies is without degenerate things or wicked beings. Upon rebirth, non-retrogressive bodhi does one attain. Thus I prostrate myself before Amida Buddha. Thus have I praised the virtues of Amida Buddha. Boundless are they like the water of the sea. Upon receiving these pure and good qualities, may all beings be reborn into his land. Naman Lops, Naman Lops, Naman Lops. Next, we will have the Dharma Talk, and today I have to actually apologize because it was actually supposed to be last week that we were going to have Roy Sense to give a Dharma Talk, but last week was the Dana Day, so I thought perhaps I should be giving the Dharma Talk last week. So I bumped Roy back 1 week, and I asked him whether he could give the Dharma Talk this week. So without any further ado, I'll ask Roy Sense for the Dharma Talk.
Morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Thank you very much for joining us on this regular Sunday service. What I would like to do is to begin my Dharma sharing with the Tisarana that I'm sure you are familiar with, and you probably realize that I'm very, very fond of these words of the Tisarana. So if you could join me and perhaps repeat the English translation along with me. So let us put our hands together and recite the Tisarana. Buddham saranam gacchami. I go to the Buddha for guidance. Dhamman saranam gacchami. I go to the Dharma for guidance. Sangham saranam gacchami. I go to the Sangha for guidance. Amanda Vutsu, Amanda Vutsu, Amanda Vutsu. The Tisarana is a mantra. It's a Theravada Buddhist mantra that I'm sure I've explained this to you before, that you will hear when you join or attend a well-known Buddhist site in India, in Bihar, which is where the Buddha spent most of his time, in the province of Bihar. Now, the province of Bihar, prior to being named given that name, it was called Magadhi, and it's a very, very small little slant of property just above the larger province called Uttar Pradesh. And if you are in Bihar, this is where 90% of the sacred sites of the Buddha remain. And the key one, as you know, is Bodh Gaya. This is where Shakyamuni reached the state of enlightenment. And as I sat underneath the Bodhi tree on 3 separate occasions, the words of Reverend Khenyo Tsuji came to light. And he wrote these words in the heart of the Buddha. And as you know, Reverend Tsuji was the former temple minister of the Toronto Buddhist Church, and he became the bishop of the Buddhist Churches of America. And this is what he wrote. When the Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree and contemplated on life and the world, he came to the supreme enlightenment that everything in the world was interdependent. Nothing can stand alone. From this conception of the universe, it follows that the self, as an integral part of the universe, exists in an interdependent relationship with this universe. The air we breathe, the food we eat, our inherited political ideas and systems, cultural values or religious teachings make up the I. Man leans on others for existence. Whether these are objects, ideals, or fellow beings, wise indeed were the masters of China when they composed the character for man as one leans against another. The knowing person understands that he or she is inextricably interrelated by everything in the world. Those are the words of Tsuji Sensei. This leads me to my part of discussion or sharing this morning with you. And it's, I guess you might say, a history of a person by the name of Hiromichi Mukaibo. Some of you may have this text with you. And he visited our temple sometime in the very, very early 2000s. This is when I was assisting Reverend Izumi. And we had the opportunity of picking him up at a place in East Vancouver to bring him here for a Dharma Talk. And what it was a sharing of his experience as a Jodo Shinshu follower. Now what happened was, at the age of 20, he was a law student at the University of Tokyo, one of the elite universities in Japan. And he came from a fairly well-to-do family. His father was a pharmacist, and he had a number of pieces of property in the area called Kita-Kyushu, which is the northern part of the island of Kyushu. Whereupon, it was in June, I think it was June of 1959, he was driving his car back home after his studies had been completed for that term. Whereupon, several minutes away from his home, his attention was diverted, and what happened was he rolled his car down a cliff, and he came to upright, but he had to have a jaw of whatever it's called to extricate himself from the car. And this took several hours. I guess it almost reminds you of what happened with Tiger Woods just fairly recently, where the jaw of life helped him be extricated from the damaged vehicle. Whereupon Mr. Makaibo suddenly realized that he wasn't feeling anything from his shoulder down. Now, at this point, I wonder how many of you recall Mr. Makaibo's visit to our temple, perhaps to the Toronto temple as well. I think he visited about 3 or 4 major temples here in Canada, along with many in the United States. But here, right behind me, towards where the speaker's podium is, he was sitting in a wheelchair. And in this position, he said that he could feel nothing from his neck down. And during this rehab period, which took 3 years in the hospital, there were times where he said to himself, you know, why not just take my own life? Because this state of existence, where I can't even use my hands, my limbs, I can't even feel anything on my toes, what am I living for? And while this experience was moving ahead, there was a young person who dropped by, and he said that this is the text that this person dropped by at his bedside. And it was a 42-page document. It was written by a well-known professor, Gibun Ueda. And in Japanese, the booklet is entitled Bukkyo wo Dorikai Suruka. In English, means how to understand the Buddha Dharma. He says that he read this booklet, I don't know how many times, to the point where his fingerprints remained on the pages of this booklet. He began to realize that there was more to life than just the physical well-being of a person who could use his fingers, touch his toes, even scratch his body. And whereupon, as he read this countless number of times, he began to realize that there was something much more than what he could do himself. He had gone through several, as I said earlier, years of rehabilitation. During this time, his mother would come and visit him. And he knew that his mother was a Jodo Shinshu follower, a devout follower, and went to the Kitakyushu Honganji temple. But at the same time, she went to, I don't know, there's a kitoshi in Japanese. I don't know what the English translation would be. It's almost like a soothsayer, a person that you can kind of go to and plead. And so she would go to this person and pray for her son's well-being. And you know, as he fixed his attention to his mother's behavior of praying for some divine power to allow him to regain his health, but at the same time, he felt, you know, this is in conflict with what Professor Ueda is saying. That, you know, you can pray all you want. You can pray all you want. But that you yourself, through your effort, cannot reach a state whereby you would reach the state of enlightenment or total understanding with the Buddha. And so with this realization, he explained to his mother, and the mother gradually realized, yes, that, you know, one can pray all you want, but that there is no divine power that is going to rescue you. And so she became a devout follower of her son. The father, who was quite well-to-do, who had some property, he was very, very insightful. in saying that he's got to find a way for his son to become more independent. And so, through his efforts, he bought a piece of property. And when Hiromichi Mukaibo became well enough to be able to sit in a wheelchair and become a bit more independent, he had him manage this parking lot, which he had built from this property that he owned. And so therefore, he became somewhat of an entrepreneur. But this experience led him to something much bigger. He said to himself, there's got to be a way whereby I could expand my resources and become helpful to others, as well as those who've been helpful for me. And so he went further afield, and he went to the Philippines, where he bought some property through his father's help, and he opened up a mission there. In the course of doing this, he decided that he would go on a mission tour of the United States and Canada to visit the larger Honganji temples, such as the Los Angeles Betsui in Seattle and others. But we were very fortunate to have him visit us here in Steveston. And naturally, part of his mission was, as an entrepreneur, he was looking for means to expand a way of spreading the Buddha Dharma. In one of these trips that he made, he went to Nepal, to Kathmandu. And there he met people who were very adventuresome, because they were all climbers of Mount Himalaya. And he looked around and he said to himself, there is no Honganji Study Center. Why isn't there one? And so with that in mind, he thought he's going to try and build something there for others, so that while they're there to experience Mount Himalaya, that they would have time to do their studies and become more acquainted with Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. And so here at the temple, we did give some donations and offered him our assistance. Whereupon, with all of these resources, he, with others in Kathmandu, built a large size study hall. And the information that is in the text states that it would seat up to 700 people to meet and to share in the Dharma. Whereupon the Honganji, on seeing the success of this, they decided to name the temple Kathmandu Honganji Temple. And so if some of you people are in that area or have the opportunity of visiting, then please do so. I missed out on this opportunity. I visited Kathmandu twice, and I missed out because the first time I was there, that temple wasn't there. But the second time, I'm sure, but I couldn't locate it because I had such a limited time there. But there are people who do make a sojourn, a special trip, to visit that center at the same time to experience Mount Himalaya. And so the core, the focus of this Dharma talk, or Dharma sharing, is that, he found out in his life that there is more to just his own existence, and that to be able to share his knowledge, his experience with others was very important. It almost sounds like what the Buddha said under the Bodhi tree, where he would like to be able to share the wisdom and the compassion of the Buddha. Now, in closing with my Dharma sharing this morning, I'd like to share with you the words that he wrote in this text. But these words were not his words. They came from a young priest who visited him during his 3-year rehabilitation. And if you'd like to listen to it, because to me it's very, very succinct, and it certainly comes to my heart. A young priest about my age from a temple rather distant from my home, visited me and told me, nothing will come listening to Buddha Dharma just to learn about the doctrine. If that's how you are listening, then you may as well quit now. Only when you accept Amida Buddha's compassionate parent mind completely will the Nembutsu of gratitude come out of your mouth. It will come out even if you meet misfortune and are cast out into the street. Please listen to the Dharma until you reach such a state. When I heard these words, I hitched up my trousers, gritted my teeth, and resolved to listen even more seriously. I heard that the Buddha Dharma was profound, and sure enough, it is. And I would become bewildered and have no idea of what it would be all about, but I jumped at this opportunity. The wonder and depth of the Venerable Master Shinnan's single thought of faith, Shin no Ichinen, based on 3,000 years of the Buddhist tradition, lit up my darkness. And those are the words that he heard, and those are the words that hit him so hard in his heart. And this is what brought him about to become a devout Buddhist follower. So that would be his catalyst. The Nembutsu became the catalyst for his life. And so with those words, thank you very, very much for listening to my Dharma sharing and those scant words of the little that I know. So with those words, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you again for listening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roy Sensei, for your Dharma talk. When Roy Sensei was talking about India, and in particular Buddha Gaya, it reminded me of when we went together in the year 2000. Bob Sensei and Molly and Itoko were also on that trip. But we had a very interesting time there at Buddha Gaya. We had a funny story happen. So it was maybe about 4 or 5 days into our trip that we arrived at Buddha Gaya. And there was a couple from Toronto, Dr. and Mrs. Ted and Joyce Izukawa. And they had read in one of those travel guides. Up until that point, all of us, we were doing our laundries in our own room and hanging it in the washrooms. And one day, so we went to Buddha Gaya. This is where the Buddha attained enlightenment. And we actually stayed there for several days. It was a prolonged stay at Buddha Gaya. And so on the first day of arrival, Ted and Joyce put out their laundry to get clean by the, we were staying in sort of a dormitory style place associated with a temple. And most of us didn't realize that you can actually put out your laundry to get clean. But in the guidebooks, it actually says it uses less water and it's better for the ecology because you're using less soap when you do it en masse. So they actually promoted this. And so Ted and Joyce put out their laundry. And that evening when we got back from sightseeing at various places, to our surprise, their laundry was nicely folded and it looked very nice. So all of us thought, hey, that's a great idea. So the next morning, we all put out our laundry. But in the meantime, we were thinking to ourselves, gee, I wonder how they do this, because where we were, electricity was not plentiful. Daily they were getting brownouts or blackouts, and so we kept on wondering, how did they get the laundry so clean in a day when the electricity was not even a guaranteed item? And as it turned out, what it is that if you put your laundry out on a sunny day, it comes back nicely dried and pressed and everything. But if you put it out on a rainy day, which happened to be the day that we all put our laundry out, in the evening, it all came back, and there were bundles of wet clothing. And I remember all of us putting out hanging our laundry out in the dining hall of this dormitory as we tried to dry it overnight in that way. But anyways, that's just a humorous story that happened to us as we ventured on our trip. But truly a magical place to go on the pilgrimage of the sites of the Buddha. If you ever get a chance, I would highly recommend it. I'd like to, again, thank Roy Sensei for his Dharma talk. And we will, before I close though, let me just, I think Jennifer has put up the website. So in the chat, if you go in there, there is a website link to where you can go to get information about the information that happened to the Higashi Honganji Temple in Los Angeles. So with that, I'd like to close this morning's service. So if I can ask you, please join me in Gassho. Naman Dobs, Naman Dobs, Naman Dobs, Naman Dobs. Once again, thank you all for joining us, and hope to see you next week. For those of you who are members of the Student Temple, we actually have our annual general meeting this afternoon at 1 p.m., and that's also on Zoom. I did send out invitations to people, but if you didn't get it and wish to join us, please send me an email and I can send you out the Zoom invitation. So thank you all. And